Well, folks, good morning. Pastor Pete here again on Thursday morning, the 16th of April. It's not morning now. Obviously, it's just after our wonderful Facebook Live conversation on Wednesday evening that a whole bunch of you and a bunch of new folks joined into. I thought I just wanted to make a couple of comments about, I think, a couple of key points that the Holy Spirit brought to us even as we were in the midst of that study. I said to you before how many times I'm always blessed and surprised at how the Lord brings things to mind that I certainly wasn't expecting. The thesis of our study was that when extraordinary difficult times become the cause for charging God with wrongdoing, that God provides a gospel restoration to God by God. And the thought there is that although Job was certainly being used by the Lord as a great example of someone with confidence in God to refute the claims and false accusations of Satan, that Job was only serving God because things went well for him. One of the things that I thought of as we were discussing that was how, that's how a good false accusation works. It's that you put a little bit of the truth in there so that the accuser wants you to get hung up on that. Now, God obviously doesn't get hung up on those things when Satan comes to him, but you and I can. The accusation there was that, Satan only serves God because it goes well for him, because it's easy for him, because his life is better when he serves God. And the trouble with that is, of course, it is better. And that's where the lie comes into it. Because Satan didn't say, Job serves you because it goes well for him and brings glory to you. The accusation was, he only serves you because how you serve him. He only obeys you because that means good fruit for him. He only does things that are pleasing in your sight because that pleases him, because of the results of that. And see, friends, we don't want to be those who fall victim to our own plans, thoughts, conclusions, understandings, especially when we start to look at what's happening in our world today. And I'm just sharing this with you because it was just fresh in my heart, and I thought, it's good for even a wider audience than just the Facebook Live audience to hear this, was because we can, without thinking it through too deeply, actually charge God with wrongdoing. That see, what he's doing, it's not only hard and difficult, it's actually wrong. That's what God was saving Job from early in the book, but it's what Job gave into himself as the book went on, and God eventually brought him out of it. And we'll see that next Wednesday evening in our Facebook Live again as we continue in that little study of Job. But the thing is that be so careful, dear friends, in such an occasion like this, to charge God with wrongdoing. There's plenty of people who are accusing God of not being powerful enough, of not being wise enough, or not being loving enough, that he would actually take steps to actually make something go better than it is right now. Because see, that's what Satan loves to do. He loves to change scenarios, like I've just changed rooms here, and think, listen, maybe God would love to do something. And you know what? Maybe God's wise enough to know exactly what to do. But he's just not that powerful. After all, we have free will, and our will's got to trump God's will, or else we're not really free. Such nonsense. Or the lie comes along that, listen, God's all powerful. And he's so wise. He knows what to do. But he's just not really that benevolent. He's just really not that interested. If he could do it, he'd do it. And the reason he doesn't do it is he doesn't care. It becomes an assault on God's love. Or, God's this loving grandpa. He's this loving elderly aunt who just wants to draw these young children in and just loves them so much. And has all the ability in the world to care for them. But he's senile. She's stupid. She'd like to help. She has the ability to help, but she's just too dumb. Doesn't understand how to do it. It becomes an assault on the wisdom of God. Friends, please let us at Downsview Baptist Church guard our hearts so carefully, because we're not immune to this temptation to find ourselves charging God with the lack of love, a lack of wisdom, or being impotent without enough power to do the things that he wants to do. Job is going to be taught a lesson by his fourth friend, Elihu, who graciously says, Job, just like you wanted your other three friends to be quiet, oh, that you would be silent, it would become your wisdom, he said to his friends in chapter 13 of Job. Here now in chapter 30, chapter 31, chapter 32, as Elihu comes on the scene, he says, Job, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to listen, because you don't want to start charging God with wrongdoing. And Downsview Baptist Church, I want us to take the warning seriously, that in our touching base of Wednesday, the idea was that don't be speaking about the return of the Lord in ways that we think we know too much. And don't be living in light of the return of the Lord in ways that are not seen as faithful to him. And here we don't want to find ourselves being the kind of people who start to talk about what God's obviously up to as if there's some deficiency in God. Even it can be done nicely. Oh, God would love to, but he just can't interfere in the affairs of men. God would love to do that, but there's only so much God can do. God would love to do this, but even God has to just let natural process. Don't buy any of that nonsense. Realize, dear friends, as Grant encouraged us tonight, Psalm 46, verse 1, God is our help and our strength and a very present help in times of trouble. Therefore, we will not fear. When I find myself fearing, I need to recognize that something about his power, protection, or presence, all those three things at the beginning of Psalm 46, one of those things I'm not believing. That he's not as present as he should be. That he's not protecting me like he wants to, or he's not powerful enough to do that. Friends, ask God today to help you. Perhaps he would provide a beautiful song. And I know I've come back to this a number of times, and I'll continue to. I think worship music is an incredible antidote to worry and fear. That you find one of your favorite songs, listen closely to the terms, to the words, to the lyrics that are being used, that it would deliver you from any kind of false assumption that God is not always up to something good. This is my Father's world, and lest I ne'er forget that though the wrong seems off so strong, God is the ruler yet. Thanks for listening.